Bolo, and we're going to talk some old school hoops. Now, let me get this out the way. Scap Attack, overall, I do like his channel a lot. Does his due diligence most of the time, even though it's clearly biased. But he's really just a countermeasure against the bias going the other way, so I can't knock it. That being said, Kobe Bryant, I also have him above LeBron, so this is not going to be a Kobe hit piece. This is putting things into proper perspective, because Scap is doing exactly what they claim they do, that people do with LeBron to put him above Kobe, and he's doing that with Kobe to say that he was equal to Shaq during that three-peat. He was not. I'm not going to sit here and say he was carried by Shaq. That was not the case. But make no mistake, I remember this vividly. They game planned for Shaquille O'Neal. He was the #1 threat and concern by every team they played against. Of course, Kobe was going to do his thing. But if you had to pick your poison, you would rather live with your wing perimeter scorer over Shaq. Okay? And I'm going to prove with more numbers, and you'll see. I'm going to put things in perspective because he's leaving
I have done now multiple videos
like
on this subject, of which I will link the last one in the comment section below and at the end of this video. But just to briefly catch you up, if you are new here, I found my way to a live stream with Gilbert Arenas a few months ago.
Gilbert Arenas is an absolute clown, by the way, who is the perfect example of just because you did it well doesn't
debated
mean you
him on the
understand it,
Kobe
because
LeBron
he is
topic
so
head
full
to
of crap
head,
and
felt
just an
I
idiot.
got him to admit certain truths about it.
You said it. You said Kobe was a closer, but the last 5 minutes, the star takes over. In today's game, the Lukas, right, the Shays, that wasn't LeBron's skill. That's not LeBron's skill, right? That's why he wasn't successful at the end until he got someone who could do that.
And yet he continues to do what I believe to be is denigrate Kobe Bryant on his platform, Gil's Arena.
Shaq was the dominant.
Gilbert definitely does that, but certain things.
So
he might
those three
say harshly
championships
aren't
that he got, he wasn't the
wrong.
lead dog yet. We know who Robin is in this instance, right? So his 5 rings is still Robin rings.
And again, as I have said previously, the thing that annoys me about this the most is that Gil is doing all of this under the guise of being a big Kobe fan.
Even though I'm a Kobe fan, right? I said something that irritated, but that is a metrics.
But he continues to take shots at Kobe.
He was the sidekick until he got rid of Shaq and did 1-2 for himself. So technically, when you're looking at it, he was a sidekick for 3, 2 as a real main character.
This leads me to question why. Is it with the greater goal of uplifting LeBron James, or is it merely to sow division and get clicks? Well,
I think it's to elevate LeBron if I had to answer the question. But he was, if we had to use the analogy, he was the Robin. He really was. No shame in that. That's the thing. We don't have to say it's shameful, but he was not in the same position. And the reason you know he wasn't at the same position is because he wanted to have 2 on his own without Shaq to prove that he could do it. Even out of his own mouth, he is saying, I wanted to do 2 with it. I wanted to win without Shaq to show you that I could be that guy as
got
well.
into the mix.
So
yes,
Kobe
former #1
admitted it.
overall draft pick in the NBA, Kwame Brown, who, reminder, played with both Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and against LeBron James, in case you forgot. Well, he just did a live stream, which again, I will link in the description below here if you guys are interested, which is entitled Gilbert Arenas Gets Destroyed by Scap Attack, the LeBron James Kobe Bryant Debate.
Damn, Gil, we gotta.
And like I said, I agree with Jay overall. Scap is correct in his assessment that Kobe is a better basketball player than LeBron James. and he was not carried by Shaq. So that's not my position. What I'm saying is that he was the complementary piece that Shaq needed to win the championship.
We gotta do a 21 gun salute to James.
It started with Shaq.
Oh no, that might disrespect the military. But no, Jay, salute to you, man. You kick Gil.
I went on that video to thank him in the comments section, and Agent Zero Gilbert Arenas himself would show up again in that comment thread, asking me to, quote, argue his point, and we again went back and forth on this subject. He is refusing to relinquish his premise that Kobe was a sidekick and a number 2 option. But more to my point is that commentary is utilized as a way of devaluing those 3 rings, which Gil and every other Kobe-hating LeBron fan uses to trash Bryant's overall legacy.
I will agree with that. People try to minimize his contributions and say, well, look, he was carried. He was not carried. He was almost as important as Shaq, but it started and ended with Shaq. That's my point. There's a clear division.
Even upon
here
my
from
admission, we
where
can call Kobe a number 2 for the 2000 title run. Gil stuck to his guns in the comments section, demanding that Kobe was a second option for the 2nd title run and the 3rd title run in 2001 and 2002. After things escalated to even higher levels throughout the day, Lamont over at FYF Sports, shout out to you, got in touch with me and indicated Gilbert wanted to continue the debate with me one-on-one later in the day. The live stream ended up being roughly 6 hours, of which Gil and I went head-to-head on the topic for roughly 2.5 of those hours. And I am planning to cut that 2.5 hours into shorter to digest segments, along with commentary and reaction from me during it. And those will be coming out during the next week, so stay tuned for that. In that debate, I try to discuss the overall issues I have with the way those 3 rings are viewed and Kobe's level of importance in acquiring them, and how that flawed perception leads to a larger depreciation of Kobe Bryant's total career. But in this video, I would first like to lay out some of the issues again that I have with the premise of Kobe being a second option or a Robin. Which, quick sidebar, even though I would be willing to accept Kobe was a number 2 option for the first run in 2000, let's just take a quick look at that 2000 title, Kobe's worst championship run at the age of 21 in 1999-2000. For the playoffs that year, in the final 2 minutes of 1-possession games, Kobe Bryant led the Lakers substantially in these clutch moments.
As he should have. Shaq was a terrible free throw shooter. At the end of the game, especially during that era, it has become a guard-centric finishing of the game. You rarely gave it to your big man unless you had like a superstar like Kevin Garnett or something like that. But more often than not, because of the smaller wing guys are
in
the
6
ball
games
handlers,
during that playoff run, the Lakers found themselves in these tight games and they produced a 6-0 record. In the final 2 minutes of these 1-score games, Shaquille O'Neal scored 2 points, going 0 of 2 from the field. No Laker player in that postseason had more than 4 points in those specific situations, aside from Kobe Bryant, who led the Lakers with 13 points in these situations, a number that led the entire NBA postseason that year, not just Kobe's Lakers team.
And that's
but again,
his role.
Even with me,
that's his role. But let's look at that first title run, right? Okay, so let's look at that title run. In the playoffs, it's not even close. 30 points, 21 points, 15 rebounds, 4.5 rebounds, 3 assists to 4.5 assists. What are we talking about here? What are we talking about here? In the first run, it was absolutely Shaq as the number 1 head dog. okay? Kobe likes to take his shots, and he's taking 4 less shots than Shaq per game, okay? Even though, you know, Shaq obviously shot a ridiculous percentage. But this, you can't even argue outside of the last 2 minutes when obviously the reins are going to be given to Kobe. Like, hey, man, finish it off for us. But the reason that they were even in that position,
conceding that playoff run, many, including Gilbert Arenas, still demand that Kobe was a Robin in 2001 and 2002. All of this posturing is just a thinly veiled tactic, in my estimation, to trash Kobe for the overall goal of elevating LeBron. Since LeBron's 4 titles are so weak and came with 2 perennial All-Stars and Hall of Famers until his final one in the Disney bubble,
I agree 1,000% with Jay on here. LeBron's 4 titles, for the most part, don't hold as much water as Kobe's. Not like all 5 of them, to me, were more hard-earned than
where he had a top 5 league-wide player in Anthony Davis. Gilbert Arenas and other Kobe detractors feel that they have to diminish Kobe's first 3 title runs. I would like to specifically, though, hone in on the second one that came in the 2001 NBA season, which could speak directly to Kobe's level at that time by just the second of 3 titles. The path to their title defense that season would not be easy for the Lakers, as first up would be the 50-win Portland Trailblazers, followed by the 55-win Sacramento Kings in the West semis, then the number 1 seed Tim Duncan-led San Antonio Spurs in the Western Conference Finals, before arriving in
those early to mid 2000s Western Conference, that was such a gauntlet. Anyone that made it out, it was damn near guaranteed.
The NBA Finals to find the 56-win Philadelphia 76ers waiting for them, led by that year's league MVP Allen Iverson, Defensive Player of the Year Dikembe Mutombo, and the 6th Man of the Year Aaron McKie.
And also Coach of the Year,
that
Larry
gauntlet
Brown.
of 50-win opponents
also
made
led the league
that
in
Lakers team one of just 5 teams still to this day in league history that would have to face 4 50-plus win opponents throughout the course of one single playoff run. In fact, based on the opponent's win-loss record, this was the second most challenging run in NBA history. Not just that though, using the SRS model, or simple rating system, this is rated as the second most difficult championship run ever, behind only the '95 Rockets. Despite the fact this was clearly one of the hardest paths ever, this Lakers team had arguably the most dominant run ever. They lost only 1 game in the entire postseason run. That one loss was in overtime to the 76ers, who, again, had the MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and 6th Man of the Year that season. And that's it. That's the only loss.
And the only reason they lost that was because the Lakers went through their side of the bracket so quick. They just had a really long layoff, and they had to shake off the rest. I remember actually calling that.
win percentage in that playoff run is second all-time by a slim margin, because these Lakers played only a best of 5 in the first round, not 7, which lessened their total win percentage of a team that had to win 16 games. Their average margin of differential for their 16-game playoff run was 12.8 points per game, which is also second best ever. So a team facing one of the hardest paths with the most challenging collection of opponents also obliterated the field at a historic rate. And not just that, This team ended the regular season on an 8-game winning streak. So they went 24-1 in their final 25 games that season, with the sole blemish being an overtime loss to the league MVP for that year. So just how was that team that dominant against that field? Well, it's pretty simple. They had the 2 best players in the NBA.
All right, at that time, Kobe was not the second best player in the NBA. He was arguably the best wing player shooting guard, because at that time, with 2001, Allen Iverson just won the MVP. T-Mac, I think, just bloomed, if I'm not mistaken. And Vince Carter was still at the top of his game, and I think might have had a higher PER that season. It might have been the season before, but there were a couple people that were in Kobe's conversation. It wasn't like a Jordan and here's the rest of the shooting guards kind of thing. It was not. So Kevin Garnett was a better player than Kobe at that point.
Not
Tim
a
Duncan
sidekick
as well.
or
So
a
he was not
Robin.
the second
In
best
the
player,
2001
but he was
playoffs,
arguably
Kobe
the best
Bryant
shooting guard.
led the playoffs
That's
in
about
win
it, but he's
shares
not the
and
second
was
best player.
third in value over replacement, above Shaq at 4th.
All right, so he's talking about value over replacement, and all right, let's see this, right? So in 2001, he had, let's go to the advanced stats, right? So 2001, his VORP was 1.5 and his win share was 3.8. So he led the league with 3.8 and his VORP was 1.5. Let's look at Shaq's. Okay, let's look at Shaq's advanced analytics. 2001, he was 3.8. So Kobe was, 3.7. Kobe's was 3.8. So he led the league, but he was 0.1 ahead of Shaq. Okay, his VORP was 1.5. Shaq's was 1.4. So it's as close as you could get. Is that really enough to say that they were equal? No. But now let's look at the rest of the advanced analytics. Anything lit up in black means that they led the playoffs that season. So Kobe, in these 3 championship runs, advanced analytics, he led 1 time in win shares and 1 time in minutes per game. Okay, so he led in 2 advanced statistics during those 3 years. Shaq, on the other hand, I'm not even going to include minutes and games, right? But PER, he led twice out of the 3 years. He led in offensive, rebound percentage? Yeah, led that once. Defensive win shares twice. Win shares twice. Win shares per 48 minutes. So even the year that Kobe won the win shares, Shaq actually had the win shares per 48 minutes. 26 to, it actually wasn't even close. 26 to 0.148. And VORP, 2 out of the 3 years. So he led in how many statistics? Not even gonna include those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. He led in 14 statistics. 16 if I were to add minutes and games and all that stuff. But Kobe led in 2. And only one of them is actually playing. What are we talking about here? Kobe, obviously,
While
from there,
Shaq
we're going to go
led
advanced
the postseason
analytics
in
like
player
he wants to
efficiency
use.
rating,
It
with
wasn't
Kobe
even
sitting at
close.
4th in that
And the one that
metric.
he beat
These
Shaq
were
with by
co-best
0.1.
players, A and 1A, Batman and Superman.
No, they weren't. No. It was A and B. Okay, that's what it was. I just showed you. The one that Kobe led in was by a sliver. And
for the playoffs,
a lot of them that
a postseason
Shaq
where
led
average
in,
scoring was
the
only
margin. It wasn't by
93.6 points
0.1.
per game league-wide, Shaq and Kobe
let's be
both
honest.
dropped absurd stat lines. O'Neal with a line of 30 points, 15 rebounds, and 3 assists. Kobe with a line of 29 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. That is 29.4 of the Lakers' 103.4 points per game in those playoffs, good for 28.4% of the team's output. And for some context here, since Gilbert and many others are so concerned with Kobe being a second option on 3 of his title runs, while LeBron was the first option for all 4 of his, LeBron James averaged 25.9 points per game during his second NBA title run during the 2013 playoffs. That's 25.9 of the Heat's 97.1 points per night, which is 26.6% of the team's output. During his third title run in 2015-2016 with the Cleveland Cavaliers, he averaged just 26.3 points of the Cavs' 104.8 points.
I like the fact that he's bringing up percentage of a team scoring, because a lot of people just look at the raw numbers,
which is
and
just
say, look,
25%
he got 30,
of
he
the
got
team's
25,
output.
he
And
better.
finally, in
So,
the
I like
2020
when people
Disney
go to
Bubble
this metric
title
because
run,
it does show a
LeBron
lot
averaged
more
27.6 of the Lakers' 113 per game, which was good for about 24.5%. So you mean to tell me that Kobe averaged more points than LeBron in 3 of LeBron's 4 title runs, while accounting for a higher percentage of his team's total points scored, and that was while being a second option and a Robin? Literally, get the hell out of here. Anyone trying to peddle Kobe as a sidekick or someone that got carried in any
Like I said, he was not carried, but Shaq was the engine that made it go. And here's my other reasoning for saying that. When you look at the whole scope of the playoffs, yeah, the numbers look close. Even though I just showed you analytically with the advanced stats, it's not. I'm not going to say it's not close, but I'm going to say it's a clear advantage in Shaq's favor. But when we go to finals performances, Kobe, we'll just say, that's where he hasn't always performed at his best. Leading up to the finals, Kobe is magnificent. But when it's talking about purely finals performances, he has let down a little bit. Let's look at the 2000 finals, right? Year 2000, 38 points to 15. 16.7 rebounds to 4.6. Mind you, they only scored 104 points a game. This is absolutely bananas. Okay? Shaq was that dominant. Now let's go to the 2 years where he felt like, no, it was definitely a co-partnership here. Let's look at the finals. 33-24. 16 rebounds, 8 rebounds, and Shaq still only was off by 1 assist. That is clearly the superior player. And look, they took almost the same amount of shots. Kobe actually played a couple more minutes, took almost as many shots, but it's a 7-point per game difference. I'll even say 6. I'll be nice about it and say it's a 6 point differential. Okay? Then let's go to 2002. Also, his shooting percentage in 2000 and 2001. I know he got hurt in game 2, but in game 1 he didn't play well as also. Let's look at game 1. I want to bring that up because people say, but he got hurt in game 2. This is game 1. Game 1 he did not perform well. He was 6 for 13, 14 points, and Shaq had 43. It was clear who was running the show. Okay? Now 2002, this was his best out of the 3. Shot 51%, great, but still 36 points a game to 26 points a game. 12.3 rebounds to 5.8, and the assist was 1.5 differential.
Any way, shape, or form in those titles. Finally, let me leave all of the Kobe haters with this additional little nugget on that second title run in 2001. Sure, Shaq won the Finals MVP against the Sixers, but the real title was won in the Western Conference Finals that season when the 2-seed Lakers clashed up against the 1-seed dynastic San Antonio Spurs, a series that contained 28-year-old prime Shaq and 24-year-old prime Tim Duncan. The Lakers absolutely demolished the Spurs, not merely sweeping them, but produced a net margin of differential in the 4 games of 89 points, a win average of 22 points per game. And in that series, it wasn't Shaq and it wasn't Duncan. I mean, sure, they were both predictably great in that series, with Shaq averaging 27 points, 13 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks, while Duncan averaged 23 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 blocks. But nah, it was 22-year-old Kobe Bryant, who was the best player on the floor during this series, dropping a series line of 33 points per game, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and 1.5 steals on 51.5% shooting from the field. So go cry in a corner somewhere.
Honestly, amazing. And he had the best series out of the 2 players in that series, but that actually goes against your point when you think of the bigger picture. You're pulling out one series where Kobe was clearly the best player. You can pull up 6-7 series where it's literally the reverse. And I guarantee you, Jay, you know this and I know this, if the numbers were flipped, you would be talking about all his dominant finals performances, and that's why he was not just Shaq's equal, but probably better. So you're pulling out one series where he was the best player, and he was in that series. But we can go forever the opposite direction, where Shaq was clearly the one doing the heavy lifting. Okay, so to me, that actually speaks the other direction when you can only bring up one clear series out of those 3 title runs. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts on the comments below. Like, comment.